St.Waidwen, farmer become god. With the mention of the name Wwin, most folk think that only one word, Godhammer. While this event echoes through the ages and is still felt years after the destruction of Yvon Dwyer Bridge, Wildwin's humble beginnings belie the powerful force he would grow into. Wildwin lived an unassuming life in a remote area of Eothas, the son of Vorless farmers. He toiled in the fields alongside his father for 22 years until his father's death. The farm then fell to him to run. He considered selling, but had no other skills upon which to draw, so he set on the path of Vorless farmer as well. Nothing of note has been recorded in Wildwin's life until 4 years after his father's death. One day, while working the fields, Wildwin's life was irrevocably changed. In his words, "Night was falling, the fingers of dusk already gripping the sky. The sun had dipped behind the world's edge and stars were peeking from beyond the shroud. The day was still and darkness had blanketed the field. I placed my last harvest of the day into the collection pile when from behind me arose a brilliant light. I turned, fear in my breast, knowing not what could have caused such intense radiance. Behind me stood a blazing figure, resplendent in glory. Its white flesh glowed with a luminescent radiance. Its head a blinding ball of light, brighter than the brightest sun of mid-year. I averted my gaze, afraid I would be struck down for daring to gaze upon such a creature. A sudden peace washed over me, sweeping away my fear, leaving my troubled soul tranquil. A loving warmth wrapped its arms around me. A voice spoke to me as I stood transfixed, trying to both see this glorious being and avoid its dazzling scrutiny. "Fear not," it said to me, "for you are chosen above all others. You will be the light to bring the rebirth of an empire." It then held out its hand and bestowed upon me a vision of power such that I could scarcely contain it. Wwin, disheveled and dirty, stumbled into his village the next morning, telling all who would listen about the miracle that happened in his fields. Eothas himself, he claimed, had appeared to him. He was to punish the Adarian governor for leading his people into ruin. A way would be provided, and those faithful who helped would be blessed with the divinity manifested. Villagers ignored him, convinced the loss of his parents had broken his mind. But Wwin continued to preach of the power of Eothas and the corruption of the governor, eventually earning him the ire of the locals. His confrontations with the villagers hit a turning point one day in mid-autumn. A crowd had gathered around Wwin, jeering him and telling him to leave the village. The Vorless crop that season was particularly light, and the villagers blamed Wwin, saying he had angered the gods, particularly Eothas, with his blasphemy. They backed him into one of the withering fields, yelling at him to go. Accounts of the inciting action are hazy. Some say a stone was thrown, others say he was pushed, others still say he tripped over a dry root sticking from the ground. Regardless of the cause, Wwin landed face down on the ground, the villagers standing over him laughing. "Enough!" A voice not Wodwin's boomed across the field. Wwin looked up at the crowd, his eyes glowing with a blinding white light. He stood, but did not stand. One moment he was on the ground, and the next he was standing before the crowd. He cowered before him. "You dare deny me?" the voice spoke through Wodwin's mouth. "You dare refuse my servant?" Wodwin's arms raised, beginning to luminesce. "You dare require proof?" His arms went out to his sides. "Never ask again, lest you be burned in the light of the new dawn." There was a flash of light from Wodwin's eyes and hands, and the entire field sprang to life. The once dried and brittle plants became full, lush, and verdant. The crowd was silent. From somewhere in the back came a call of praise Eothas, and then they all fell to their knees in front of Wwin, farmer turned god. I have heard that story before, not so detailed, of course. Some god who died due to a bomb given from the dear Woodians. How can a god die to a bomb? Or the vessel of a god, anyways. There's an upstairs here I haven't explored. Let's see what lies upstairs. Maybe we'll meet some interesting characters before we head back out into Defiance Bay. Looks like more people. People for me to read, I suppose. He's busy, filling a spur off to a small round bullet. A burly Umawa raises his hand in greeting. "Hello." Ilfa nods at you, a pint in one hand and a mace slung over his shoulder. "Hello." The Orlan woman nods at you, a cup of wine in her hand and scepter across her lap.
"Hail, traveler."
An Orlan man relaxes with his feet propped on the table. Patches of dark brown skin peek out from under a full mane of blue-green hair. He and the Orlan woman with him exchange laughs and comments with the trio at a nearby tail, and he spins a dagger in his hand. His hazel eyes watch you. "You look like you've seen a night or two in the wilds. Joining us for a drink?" Who are all of you? The name's Two-Tone Weexel. The lady next to me is Key. We've had our fun with the expeditions, but we're hoping to enjoy a little peace and quiet. For the next few weeks, anyway. A man at the next table nods at you. I'm Dreadshot Daden. This is Hurdy and Ilfa. We were part of separate expedition teams, but we both suffered losses and decided to band together. He takes several items off his fingers. Beasts, barbarians, beeswax. It's a dangerous time to be an adventurer, but a prosperous one too. At the next table, Daden raises his hand, his glass, and here's to many more prosperous journeys. Is there something else you wanted? No, that's fine. Just wanted to come and say hello. Alright then, well, that was interesting. It's kind of odd to have bookshelves here. Scattered amongst such titles as Flora of the Living Land, Unity and Disunity, A History of the Dreadfire Archipelago, and treaties on the Culkin people are half a dozen travel journals held together with twine. I'm used to being around inns and taverns where people don't even look twice at books. Well, there's no one
Finished.
here. Oops. Yeah, I unlocked it really quickly, but there's 3 lockpicks inside there. That was actually quite worth it. Oh. Hello. As you near, you feel vibrant. Okay, reach out to the soul. You see a man standing on a dock. Sailors, soldiers, and prostitutes swarm around him, but he's watching the ship disappearing over the horizon. He should be glad his men didn't take his life along with his ship, but failure is almost as bad as a death for a Valian, and the gods only know he hadn't fared any better in his family's mercantile business. It's almost a relief to see that last herald of his failure sail into the distance, sparing him the need to go back to his father and admit defeat once again. Besides, with a sharp wits and an eye for opportunity, there's always a chance for a comeback. He pulls a flask from his hip and takes a long drink. There will be a time for that later. He adjusts the flap of his eye patch and finds the tower of the brothel. He plots a new course for the evening, a grin on his face. Very interesting, the things that you see on people. The man downstairs losing his fingers in that fight to that big reptilian creature. Reach out to the soul. You see a group of people standing on a clear patch of earth, surrounded by several motionless bodies. On the ground in the middle of the group is a small figure curled up to protect itself from the kicking feet of the people standing around it. This woman is there, apart from the group, holding an enormous sword. She leans on it, using it almost like a crutch, hunched over and breathing heavily. She stares at the people and grunts. Pulling herself upright and lifting the sword from the ground, she draws in a large breath, leans into a run, and quickly closes distance between herself and the group. A blood-chilling howl suddenly explodes from her. The mob freezes mid-kick and stares at the terrifying bull of a woman now charging it. She jumps at the last second, bending slightly, turning herself into a projectile flying into the middle of the people, assaulting the figure on the ground. Everyone topples as she flies into them. She hits the ground beyond them, rolling, leaping back up, and turns to face them. She plants both of her feet and lifts her sword, surveying the field. Suddenly she spins on her heel, swinging her sword with a savage grace, cutting down the nearest of the assailants. Letting herself get pulled into the momentum of the spin, she brings her sword around, blade sideways, into the head of a would-be opponent. The bottom of the hilt scatters his temple, and he crumples to the ground at her feet. She looks up, rage-filled eyes, daring the remaining 2 men to approach. After a quick sideways glance at each other, they turn heel and run. One briefly looks back over his shoulder, ensuring she isn't following him. She slowly lets out her breath, as she had been holding, and walks over to help the figure still huddle on the ground. Quite heroic and brave. She must be a good fighter. Yeah, this is much cleaner than the Black Hound. Okay. People enjoying their time together in the room. I'm not going to disturb them. This one seems to be empty. It's in this bookshelf. Most Unfortunate Tale, Favia and Bernat. A valiant tragedy. Well, we'll take that. What is this? The pages of these old books are crisp and fragrant with the salt of a sea breeze. Yes, because you will get that here in Defiance Bay. Now, let's go out into the city. Been in here long enough. You want to talk to me, Editor?
Hey. The dozens. Pretty sure you won't find one among them who stood within 100 miles of that bridge when the Godhammer went off. Too bad, too. Assumed there'd be less of them.
Well, that's what they call what killed Wwin and destroyed the legacy. The Godhammer, the explosion. Let me clarify with Ader, though. That's what they call the bomb they blew up Wwin with. Don't know much about it other than that. Well, neither do I. Anything kills a living god, I guess you gotta name it. Why did they call themselves the Dozens? was 12 Derwidians stood against Helgot's citadel waiting for Wwin to cross the bridge there. They had to hold him there long enough for the Godhammer to detonate, so that's what they did. What do you have against the dozens? Nothing serious. Nothing I don't have against a lot of folks, anyway. The dozens, they like to take things into their own hands. It gets ugly sometimes. We don't have them in Gilded Vale, but they'd be right at home there. They picked that name so they could do what they wanted and feel like it was right. Got nothing to do with honor or sacrifice. They like to invoke Magran, too, when they especially want to feel right. Somehow I don't think she'd be too impressed with that lot. I'm sure she'd like to set him on fire any time they use her name, but the gods probably got rules against that kind of thing. Magran, well, that's who Durance follows. Magran is who they attribute the destruction of the Wwin vessel with. St.Waidwen. People hide behind symbols so they can't be questioned. The Duke's a reasonable man. Maybe while we're in Defiance Bay we can get him to force people to call themselves what they are. Don't imagine they'd have as many members if they called themselves the loudmouth sheepfuckers. Let's continue on. Good idea.
Right.
Good for a laugh. So I think we've only explored half of this section of the city, if that. Grabbed the first inn that we saw on the way in. Tired. Been on the road for a long time. Slept briefly at my stronghold, but didn't have time to sit and enjoy anything and relax. Evening. Good time to enjoy the... Well, it's very late in the evening. There's gonna be nothing open, but... I'm not sure if we shouldn't go back and rent another room. That might be the better course. I mean, there's nobody out here. The worst thing that we'll run into are bandits, and if there are any here. Most cities have them. Ruffians. So, we'll spend another night, and then we'll come back out. Or another time sleeping, at least another 8-9 hours. It's early in the morning. We rested twice. Didn't really sleep the second time. I went out with like a... something like a baby the first time. Hello, Justicar. Join the Crucible Knights is a high honor, so I hear. Who's this guy adorned with his helmet? Don't need to read everybody I come across. Well, I take it this is leaving the area. Oh, maybe not. Let's keep going. Psst, over here, mister. Yes? A young boy watches the passers-by and counts a grimy handful of coins. His face and arms are smudged with dirt, but except for the grass stains, his clothes are in good condition. As you approach, he blinks and makes a quick, furtive effort to pocket his coins. Hey, mister, you want to know a secret? He wipes his nose with the sleeve. I know a real good secret. Looks like we got a little hustler here. Someone raised this kid right. Okay, really? What is it? He shrugs and clasps his hands behind his back, kicking a loose pebble. I just saw folks hiding some really neat things. I could show you where, but Mom and Dad told me not to talk to strangers. His eyes roll slowly up to you. But maybe you could help me with something. Then we wouldn't be strangers. Help you with what? His voice suddenly rises in pitch and tempo. The Crucible Knights have these daggers made out of March steel. It's the best steel around, except for Durgan steel, which doesn't count because no one makes it anymore. He stops long enough to catch his breath. Anyway, there's this merchant over by the expedition hall, and he has a dagger made of real March steel. His eyes grow large and round. He said he wouldn't sell it to me because I'm a kid, and kids don't know anything about daggers. But that's not true. I know lots about daggers. I know about the different kinds of steel. I know about the Crucible Knights make them in a forge. I know about the tip that can pierce low-gauge scale armor, that one that's good and sharp and cut through bone. See, I know plenty about daggers, and I really, really want this one. If you could just get it for me, I promise I'll never, ever ask anyone for anything again. March steel. The lad has good taste. Only I ever had little sharp stickers as a child, mostly for oysters. Still managed to poke a hole through my palm once. No, I'm not going to be rough with them. Sounds reasonable, I'll get it for you. He jumps up and down, whooping and hollering. I knew a real adventurer would understand. He points to the large building. There's a big merchant over by Advent's Den who sells weapons. He's the one with the dagger. I'll wait right here for you. His gap tooth stretches from ear to ear. Merchant over by Advent's Den who sells weapons. Really? Well, I'm not sure. I don't know the city. Well, let's keep on exploring. We come across this merchant who sells this March steel. I would love March steel items. That would be awesome. It'd be a definite improvement over what we currently have. Well, I don't want to go into some place that's too much. Hello. Looks like a little dwarf over there. Step back. I can take a look to see what's in here, but I don't want to go... Catacombs. I don't know whether this may lead to the sewers in the city, and I don't really need to explore that whole mess. Big cities often do have sewers like this, at least the clean ones. The shit's gotta go somewhere. But, what is this? I can read whatever the soul was that was here in this dead body. As you approach the dead man, you can feel the faint traces of his soul lingering, a stunned uncertainty holding it in place. When you near without warning, the soul hurries towards you as though you were a solitary light in the dark gloom of this place, to come to usher it away. Its essence invades your consciousness. You are in a different body now, walking deeper into the catacombs, cloaked in a dark robe with a mask pulled over your face. You're following a familiar path along the canal, heading to a room built around a statue of a figure wearing a robe much like yours. Others await, clothed in hoods and shadows. Ahead is another figure, dressed like you, traveling in the same direction. You don't know his name, and that's how it's supposed to be. Out of the darkness, something monstrous grabs the other figure. You turn to flee, but find yourself face to face with a troll. The panic pounds through your brain is interrupted by razor-edged teeth and claws. You stomp yourself out of the dead man's memory. The corpse lies in the damp and grimy ground. His hood and mask are missing, and his clothes are shredded. Sagani draws up next to me. Are you alright? Looked almost like you lost your footing for a minute. It feels that way when I see into the ether. She watches you quietly. You really are a watcher, aren't you? Once in a great many generations, one of my people is born with the ability to speak to souls. Usually such individuals become elders, or a lone set of tracks in the snow. She cocks her head. I would have thought my journey would be easier if I could see what you see, but looking at you, I'm not so sure. Neither am I. Believe it or not, I once would have rejoiced to know I'd be picked to travel far in search of something great. But even these gifts come with a cost, don't they? Forgive me, I was a little skeptical of your abilities before. I can't say I've met a real watcher before. Oh, don't worry about him. He just likes doing that from time to time. Seems to cheer him up, so I just let him. Once you've seen it a few times, the shock wears off. Every time he goes a little strange in the face, I try and see if I can hear anything. Kana grins. It hasn't worked so far. See if you can get him to tell you what the spirits said. Well, this one said it was killed by a troll down here, so we would have to worry. I've never heard of a troll living in the sewers, though. Well, now I'm kind of curious, but... Oh, I didn't have to go very far to see it. Let's kill this thing. See if I can't set it afire first. Trolls love being on fire. Oh, what is this? There's more here. We got black ooze. Let's see. Can you do something to aid us? I'll head off the ooze myself. It wasn't set on fire. It's interesting we now have a fox that helps us out.
Ready, Watcher.
the ooze falls pretty fast. That troll took a bit of a beating.
On your word.
Good. Peridot. Take some of this troll skin. You can use it with our manufacturing things like potions and sometimes even leather and stuff like that. Leather armor or other weapons. Another black ooze. You know what? I don't think that there's traps down here, but I can't be sure.
And what does the flame reveal?
Flame reveals nothing. After being through much of the... oh, I can't believe I forgot his name. Lord of the Gilded Veil. Which being through his place, all the traps, and then through the dungeon with the traps everywhere, and then definitely going beneath into Oddnua. Oh, this area is huge. Traps everywhere, I'm just used to that. More black ooze.
Huh?
So can we pick this up?
Huh? Hey.
Well, this thing's coming at us. Let's take it on. Well, you know what? I think we should go back to the surface. We killed the troll. More lockpick, nice. Killed the troll.
Sure.
We can come back and explore in the future. I want to go see the city. I don't want to dungeon crawl everywhere in my life. It's a bit tedious. Been through so much of that lately. And out in the woods, and yeah, I just want to explore the city, talk to people for a while. Some of that black ooze. We'll come back, definitely. We know there's an adventure that can be had right underneath the city, so maybe I'll take a look in this room first. But if it leads somewhere else, then I won't bother.
Slow and silent.
This black ooze. Yeah. We'll come back here next. Close this door, just so I remember that I haven't been through there. Oh, the hound followed me through. Close this door. Thank you, Kana. Smells like... Actually, it smells really terrible under here. It's probably the worst place I've ever been in, actually. So, let's enjoy the sunshine and then explore what we can in the city. Maybe find some of that good quality weaponry that the little boy's talking about.